Hey, have you ever thought about the 10 ultimate TV shows that demonstrate the usefulness of everyday carry? Well, I have, and let me tell you about it. Welcome to another episode of Haku EDC. I'm your host, an old man running a young channel, and today we're diving into the world of everyday carry on television. Now, these aren't reviews of shows, but more about how they use everyday carry, so buckle up. Before we jump in, if you enjoy what you're hearing, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Your support helps this channel grow. And feel free to drop a message in the comments, and I love to hear whatever you have to say. Today's list focuses on TV shows with at least 20 episodes, and so no movies, no special events have been available in the US and in English. Now I know that there are some awesome shows from India, Finland, and Korea, but for today we are sticking what's readily accessible in English. The first shows are in no particular order. The last two tied for number one. Yep, you heard right, a tie. But first, let's talk about a reality show that I think breaks the mold. There are a whole bunch of survivor-type reality shows. Most of them are not very good, or they're fake, or they're contrived. I think that there's a couple of them that are just above the rest. Is Alone. And kicking things off, we're going to go with Alone, which is the gold standard, in my mind, of wilderness survival shows. This isn't your typical contrived show. Contestants are dropped in remote locations with just a few tools that they must choose from. So they get a list of tools, then they choose those tools, and they're dropped off alone for, I think, up to 200 days. And they must survive. There's no production crew, no outside help, just there's wits and limited gear like a knife, a tarp, fishing gear, maybe a bow if it's something that they've chose. It's raw, real, and tests not only survival skills, but human endurance. It is part of the EDC because contestants get to choose from a list of the same things. So you get to see which things are used and how they're used and which things end up being used the best. That's Alone. The next show is TV shows from the 60s and 70s, and particularly Batman's utility belt. Now, that utility belt does a lot of things. Packed with gadgets like grappling hooks, batarangs, and smoke pellets, the belt is just the ultimate EDC for a superhero. Whether it's lot-picking tools or a miniature computer, Batman's ready for whatever Gotham throws at him. It's a great example of being prepared for anything. Now, there's a lot of superhero movies, but I concentrated on Batman because, one, Batman is fully human, and he actually carries things around which helps him, unlike other superheroes that have powers. The one that I thought was pretty close, Punisher. But I think that Batman is really the one that has the most amount of gadgets. The other one, this one might be a curveball for like some of you, but I'm going to say Sex in the City. You might think of Sex and the City as not really an EDC show, but when you think about it, the characters there have some pretty essential items that they always have with them. Everything from handbags to cosmetics to wallets. And the show in its own right really prepared mostly a lot of young females with the things that they should carry. It was also one of the first shows to really highlight how useful a cell phone could be. Sex in the City is one of those shows that you have to watch to really understand the EDC part of it. Now, the really goofy one here, and I really mean really goofy, with EDC is Get Smart. Now, it was a comedy, and Maxwell Smart had gadgets that were ahead of its time from the infamous shoe phones, and you have to that the shoe phone was invented way before we had cell phones. exploding cigars, and the show sort of playfulness about spy gear. That particular show was really a comedy show with a whole bunch of different kinds of EDC gadgets, including robots, people, and now I'm going to come back to some of the more traditional EDC things that we think about. Jack Bauer, 24, in season 5, when he carries around the messenger bag, the man purse, whatever you want to call it, he had it. And in that thing, he had a whole bunch of stuff. He had things like weapons. He had a first aid kit. He had a bunch of IDs that were different, some communication devices, a lot of the tools that he used to sort of save the US, save the world. And he always had the right tool for like the right time. And that was one of the better shows, I think, that demonstrated what an EDC could do. Now, there are a lot of cop shows, military shows, a lot of other sort of emergency shows. And I decided not to deal with them because they have their own category. They actually are more working with their EDC than actually using it. I'm going to go to a next one that is fairly old also, and that's the Wild Wild West. People remember that TV show from the 60s, but it brought a bunch of what was then futuristic gadgets to the Wild Wild West. Secret agents, James West, he carried a variety of hidden gadgets. They were concealed weapons. They combined different types of guns, different types of hooks, different types of things that were spy tech. In one storyline, he was able to change his voice. This next one is going to surprise a few people. It's not really aimed at what is typically the EDC audience, but it is an EDC, and I want to say that it's Dora the Explorer. Yes, it's a cartoon character, and Dora really teaches kids putting things in their backpacks and being prepared. In her backpack, she has things like maps, she has snacks, she has tools, she generally carries a compass. What's in her backpack really helps her solve the day's problems that she has. Now don't laugh, but Dora's backpack is fun and
the backpack loaded up with things and knickknacks too.
So
anything that you might need, I've got inside for you.
Now I'm going to mention we're at number 8 right now, and number 8 is Xena Warrior Princess. Xena's arsenal was packed with some pretty interesting items. She had a chakra, a sword, she had a dagger that she always carried, and also a whip. Those things were good for both close combat. She actually used them to do other things, from starting fires to actually cutting wood. That chakra seemed to be a little magical at times, but it was a thing that Xena used quite often. I think that she actually carried her EDC items among the best of everyone because she had a place where everything went and she'd grab it right away, whether it's a dagger, sword, chakra, or whip. Before we wrap it up, and I tell you before we get to the top 2, I wanted to mention a few shows. Honorable mention wise, I want to talk about The Walking Dead. Needing a sharp object to cut heads, that's their number one weapon, although they sometimes use swords and guns, but just using a knife to do that. So you always had a knife on you. The other one is kind of interesting too, Dexter. Dexter was a serial killer, but he traveled around with a kill kit. That kit included so much stuff: knives, drills, high amounts of plastic sheets, and duct tape. Hey, not all EDCs are for positive purposes. Dexter seemed to use his EDC well. Now, there was a whole bunch of shows that had a lot of lost potential. And what I mean was they had devices, but they were just so limited in their use. One of the shows that I think about the most was a show called Space 1999. It had a lot of potential. It had some futuristic tech, but they fell short because they had a simple communicator. And all it could do was communicate. it could not share your location. It was huge, and it sat on people's waist. That could have been so much more in that show that actually had pretty darn good special effects for its time period. There is also a show that I'm hopeful for, that we'll see a lot more stuff related to EDC. And that show is Silo. Silo is a sci-fi show that's based on a Hugh Howey great book series. Read it if you can. It begins its second series later in October, and it features a character, Juliet, who runs around with what is a SOG reactor, which they stopped making a few years ago. Has a multitude that she uses to fix stuff. It's a
Do not say you want to go outside.
in a dystopian future. It looks like SOG is going to bring back the tool that it canceled a few years ago. They're doing a pre-sale of something. Now for the tie for number one. Now for the tie at number one. I'm going to go with what everyone knows. MacGyver is one of them, obviously. Mac made the Swiss Army knife famous again. It had always been famous, but he made it famous again. And he was able to use everyday items like duct tape, paper clips, matches to get himself and others out of the stickiest kinds of situations. He could always pull out something from his pocket or something around him to help others. I mean, that's really what it is. The other interesting thing that he's did is that he helped us to really concentrate on what's in our pockets, not some big tools, not 30 pieces of things that we bring with us, but what's in our pockets and in our surroundings. Right now, I'm trying to get my EDC in that sort of frame of reference also now. I'm moving away from the large, multi-big devices and trying to figure out how I can slim that down. And I just think that, like a lot of people, that's probably the number one EDC show. But I got a tie. That the Doctor Who was a tie. He has one signature tool, and then a bunch of little ones. And that tool, the sonic screwdriver, it opens locks, it fixes machinery, it analyzes data, and it disables things also. It's a fantastic screwdriver. It is the ultimate screwdriver. The Doctor also had things like the magic paper, the psychic paper that the Doctor would use, that people would look at it and then would see either what they wanted to see or what the Doctor wanted them to see. Plus, you can throw in the TARDIS. That's my list. What do you think? Did I miss any shows that you thought should be part of this list? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And just let me know. Am I way off base? Did I miss something that was really obvious? Please like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next episode of Haku EDC. See you in the future.